So hi, and welcome in today's video. As you can see the title and the position, Pawn Endgames, and it is actually a pawn endgame. As we have learned about what? We have learned about key squares in the last video or stream because I am also streaming right now. So what are we going to learn today? Title is Pawn Endgame, but now today we are going to learn about corresponding squares. Corresponding squares are squares of reciprocal zugzwang. We may speak of corresponding squares for kings, with pawns, and with other material. We may speak of correspondence between any pairs of pieces. The most commonly seen cases of corresponding squares are the opposition, mined squares, and triangulation. Opposition is the state of two kings standing on the same file with one square separating them. Close opposition. Three or five squares between them is called distant opposition. The opposition may be vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. To get opposition means to achieve this standing of the kings one square apart with the opponent to move. That is, to place him in zugzwang. And to fall into opposition means, conversely, to fall into zugzwang oneself. Return to key squares 1. So, in the last stream, you must return or video, you must return to key squares 1, where we see the simplest case of the opposition close vertical with white to move. There is no win, which is the same position as key squares 1. Yes, with white to move, there is no win. King c5, king e5, king e7 draw. King c7, black to move loses because he must allow the enemy king onto one of the key squares. King c7, king e6 or king e7, king c6. When we are speaking of the opposition, it is usually not just one pair of squares, but several, which are under consideration. c5 and c7, d5 and d7, e5 and e7. The stronger side gets the opposition in order to execute an outflanking, where the enemy king retreats to one side and our king then attacks the other way. The weaker side gets the opposition in order to prevent this outflanking. So, I hope that you have learned about corresponding squares. So, let's, as we are being told, and as I have told you, corresponding squares are of three types: opposition, mined squares, and triangulation. So, what are we waiting for? Let's go on. Let's do opposition. Ooh. So, as you can see this position, white has the opposition, but it is not enough to win. But as I have told you about the dot in the last video or stream, it is black to move. And what he is going to do? King to c7. But what if he does king a7? King a7 is a mistake in view of a5. B into a5, king into a5. Here getting the opposition decides. King b7, king b5, king c7, king c5, and what is just winning. So, king c7, king to a6. Since c5 would be useless, c5 would be really useless because then we would have an a pawn, the corner rook pawn, and black king would aim for the a8 square, and that will be a simple draw. So, king to a6, nice square. So, since c5 would be useless, the king starts an outflanking maneuver. Black replies by getting the horizontal position. Opposition. Okay, king c6, king a7, king c7. What if he goes for king c5? Is this a problem? No, there is no problem. Who said about problems? King c5 is actually losing. You cannot do anything if it takes, here, push, a5, and simple promote. Hmm. But as I've told, white has the opposition, but it is not enough to win. King c7, we cannot do anything. King a8, king c8 equal, but not king c6. This this is a mistake. King b8, king c5, king b7, and lost. This is extra provided by Dvorsky in-game. If we move the position one file to the right, white would win. King d7 is met by d5. Now, this is not a corner rook pawn. It's a normal pawn which is on the knight's, which is also known as the knight's pawn because it is on the file where the knight stays. B file, G file are known as the knight pawns. Maybe I don't know about that. So it's in B pawn, not an A pawn or H pawn. So it would be winning. Yes, yes, because when he takes, so let's say he takes, we take, and now whose move it is? Black. White have got the opposition, and simply white wins. So there's also another extra provided by Dvorsky and Gimman. White would also win if he had a reverse tempo at his disposal. Let's move the a pawn back to a3. Then after king c7, king a6, king c6, he first recaptures the opposition by a4 and then performs the outflanking maneuver. King c7, king a7, king c6, king b8, king c5, king b7, and just a win. But if our pawn stays on the a4 square from the starting position, means not the starting position, I am talking about this position. If our pawn is on the a4 square instead of a3, it would be just a draw. Better you just offer him a draw. Or not. You can play, make a simple draw. But if your pawn is on a3, offering a draw would be a blunder. You then king c7, you have a what is it? Kind of a waiting move and gain the opposition. And here black loses. So let's move to another position of opposition. In the next diagram, the only thing that saves white is getting the distant opposition. Now what is known as the distant opposition? So, as you can see, it's white to move. And now you may tell me that this position is simple. White is losing, right? Actually, it's not that simple. King h1. This is opposition. Now you will tell me that some of you, not you, some of you Tell me this is not known as opposition. Opposition is known as a gap, a one square gap between two kings, like king g2 and black king e2, like that, right? No, I've told you about close opposition and distant opposition. And king h1, white's king cannot move forward on king g3. If you play king g3, it would be a blunder. Why? There comes king e1, king g2, king e2, king g3, king f1. White would like to take the opposition with king f1, but this is also a mistake. After king d2, king f2, king d3, the f3 square his king needs is occupied by his own pawn, and the opposition passes to his opponent, king f1 or king g3, king e3, king g2, king e2, etc. But after king h1, what he do? Means what can he do? King d2, king h2, king d3, king h3. Just play in opposition. Just have the opposition, you win the game. If you play king e2, you play king g2, and this is really a draw. And if you likes to make you win, then you should accept it because it is not winning actually. If he wants to make the game a little boring, can make, because now after the queens are promoted, check and done, which is actually very easy for us to give it check. Should we blunder? What now? Check. Game over. So, now what about this question? So now, let's examine the mechanism by which the stronger side can exploit the distant opposition. It is, in fact, quite simple and consists of the conversation. Wow. I want to tell conversion of the distant opposition into close opposition by means of outflanking. If outflanking is not possible, then possession of the distant opposition is worthless. H. Matheson, 1918. This question is made by him. I think I don't know about it. Okay, the pawns are lost, after which black's king will control the key squares in front of the f7 pawn. But white has a tactical resource at hand. He moves both pawns forward to lure black's pawn nearer to his king, allowing him to defend the new key squares. And I would maybe sometime, how much? 2 minutes, 37, okay, 38. No, let's say 3 minutes. I'm taking a 3 minutes break, and you have a 3 minute thinking. So I'm just here. Hello? So yeah, I think you have thought about this question. The move in this position is a brilliant, not brilliant, g6. What if his king takes the pawn? King g2. If he wants to make it complex by playing f5, king here, he plays here, here, and now plays. But if he takes with the pawn, you play f5. What if he pushes his pawn? Yes, yes, yes. We do this. He takes. Oh, he plays this. And after this, we play this. And this is a nice draw. This is a nice draw. But let's say he also takes this pawn. King g1. Blacks controls the distant opposition, but he cannot convert it into close opposition. The problem is that after king g5, king f4, just kidding. King g5, how can one play king f4? King g5, king f1. Outflanking with king h4 has no point, of course. And on king f4, g4, king f4 or g4, it is white who takes the close opposition by king f2 or g2. And black's king can't use the f5 square as it is blocked by his own pawn. If the king and the pawn could both occupy this square simultaneously, then on the next move, the outflanking would be decisive. Unfortunately, the rules of chess don't allow such a thing. This was really funny. Okay. Taking the distant opposition with king e1 leads only to a draw. The opposition on the e file is meaningless because king e1, king e8, king e2, what he does. And and if the white king leaves the e file, his opponent will take the opposition forever. That is king f2, king f8, king g3, king g7, king f3, king f7, etc. And if king e7, king e3, king e8, king e4, king e7, and white cannot get any closer because the e5 square is off limits. In such situations, there is usually a major line in which it vitally important to capture the opposition. And when the enemy king retreats from it, you must outflank it. In this instance, that would be the f file. Imagine that black's king was on f7 and moved to one side. White must move to outflank. Thus, king g2. It's pointless to stay on the e file. White's king will reach the key squares g6. So black plays king to f6. Now what do we have in this position? As we have already noted, on the f file, it is necessary to maintain the opposition. Therefore king f2. What if king f3? That would be a mistake. Why? King f5 and black has got the opposition. So king f2. What's black to do now? Moving the king forward is useless. King f5, king f3, king e5, king e3, king f5, king d4 and c5. If we retreat the king to the right, white's king advances left and takes over the key squares on the queen side. So let's say king g6, king e3, king f7, king d4, king f3 is not bad either. King e7, king c3, king d7, king b4, king c5, king a5. Diagonal opposition. King b7, king b5, king c7, king a6. That only leaves king e7. But now comes the algorithm we already know. King g3. But after king e7, that only leaves king e7. But now comes the algorithm we already know. King g3. I was actually thinking about king e7 and now I was telling about algorithm we already know. The dialogue. Actually, it is not a dialogue. I was talking in a by seeing the situation, and I always comment on the moves. So king e7, king g3, king f7, king f3, king e7, king g4, king f8, king f4, king e7, king g5, king f7, king f5. The distant opposition has been successfully transformed into the close one. And white is clearly winning in this position. Clearly winning. It's a complete win. No one can stop white. Okay, now solve this question. The first thing white must do is seize the opposition. Now think, I gave you, I just gave you an amazing hint. Amazing means ultra hint. Amazing hint. You think? I'm giving you 1 minute. 1 minute for this. I gave you. Okay, the move in this position is simple, and that is king to f5. King b6. Black's king must be the first one on the 6th rank. King f6. The rest is the standard technique of converting the distant opposition into close opposition. Here, the major line is the 7th rank. Yes, king b7, king f7, but king e5 would be a mistake as king a7, and that would be a simple draw. King f7, king b6. If king b8, king e6. Okay, king e8, outflanking. King a7, king e7, king a8, king d6, king b7, king d7. Instead of easily winning king d7, white might also play king takes c5, king c7, king b4, king b6, c5, or king takes c5 or king takes a4 would be draw, but like if it takes king takes c5, this would be a win here. This would be a mistake, but check is winning. Now this would be a mistake. Why? Actually, this position would be an equal, but here you should do this. You should come from here to attack, and if he tries to attack from here, you push. He come here, he comes here, and you take and you win. Very simple, very simple. But king d7, king b6, king c8, the final decisive outflanking. George Walker analyzed a similar position as far back as 1841. We shall return to it in our next session, Mind Squares. But not now. Why? Means why? There's an extra puzzle provided by Diversky and game manual. If it had been on a7, yeah, I've seen this position. Actually, I know these positions because I've completed most of, means not most of, I've completed nothing. If there are 1200 puzzles like that, I have completed 60, 80, no, 85 like that, yeah. But till 85, we also reach mind squares, also reach triangulation, above triangulation. Triangulation is near to, wait, oh, sorry, is it minimized? Oh, yeah, sorry. Triangulation is correspondence squares is over in 50. I have completed floating squares. Oh, why am I telling you about these topics? If I don't tell you, it would be more exciting. I made a mistake. Okay, floating square. What more? Don't check. And means if the king would be on a7 in the starting position, Then king b7 would lead to a draw since white could no longer seize the opposition. King e6 or king f6, king b6, draw. Now king a6 is simple draw. Here, black has won a position. This is a tragicomedies. Yates, Tatakover, bad Homburg, bad. Why is it bad? Homburg, 1927. Black has won a position. Okay. Whoa. Oh, can they even won positions? Wow. Is it black to move? I would give you 1 minute. Okay. Move is queen takes b4. A takes b3 is possible. Means a takes b3 is possible. But now after taking this, but here a takes b3 is also possible. Sorry. But okay. What if queen c3, rook takes b5, right? Rook takes b5 or king a2, king. Okay, those lines will be also strong. Tatakover, however, decided to transpose it into a pawn ending which he thought was won. A takes b3, king b2, king c4, king a3, b2, and here king c3 is stalemate. King c3 is stalemate. King a2, or b2, king a2. After king c3, king b1, king into b4, king into b2, the draw is obvious, and it was not won, and also not winning. Okay, this is the last question for today's video and stream. I have been streaming from wait 50, complete 15, now 17. I've been streaming from 2 hours, but I have just closed the stream and again open. I've just clicked on stop stream and start stream within 2 seconds between my stream. So it would show 1 hour, but it's that stream was also something 1 hour something. I've been streaming for this time. Wow. I will give you 2 minutes. No, that's it, 3 minutes. No, 3 minutes is just a very big time. I would recommend you to pause the stream or video and think that's the best idea. I think so. Okay, this is also tragicomedies. Yusupov versus Lujovojevic. Linars, 1992. White's rook is tied to the defense of the pawn at g3. Black would have won easily if he had retreated his rook by rook a3 to prevent the white king from approaching the pawns. King e4, f5, check, and king f6 wins. And next move, king f6 wins. Otherwise, he follows up with followed by king f6, g7, and f7 f6 or f7 f5. Instead, black played rook f5. Why? Okay, there is no question of why. King e4, rook takes, pawn takes. White has the opposition, but Lujo, what is his name? Lujovojevic, okay, had counted on f6. G takes f6. King takes f6. King f4. g5. Yusupov replied king f3, and it became clear that the opposition on the f file would give black nothing. King f7, and as soon as black's king goes to the e file, white's king immediately takes the opposition. King f2, king e6, king e2 immediately takes the opposition. King d6, king d2, king c5, king e3, draw. So let's end stream and video. So what? We will meet in the next video, and the title will be I will not tell now. You will get to know when I will upload it. So okay, we will meet in the next video. Bye bye.